is great to be here with you, and what a special day. And I see that so many of us are here today. And Easter always was like that in my growing up too. You know, I just never would want to miss Easter service. And you know, when I was a kid, it seemed sort of like, well, we all go to church on Easter. I mean, I was active, but a lot of people just would come on Easter, and I wondered why. And really, I think the why is because it's really about renewal. It's about a whole new start. And it's such a sacred time. I think another reason why Easter is so compelling is that around the world, um, it's celebrated in so many cultures, so many of certainly Christian traditions, and and it brings us together, whether we think about it or not, energetically, in this infinite way that things happen beyond our ability to see them. Things are going on when we connect with each other. So just like they are when we connect with each other here. So I'm really happy to be with you today. And there's a lot to share. Um, you know, um, there's only a few places in the Bible where um, God says, prove me, according to the way the stories are told. Prove me. I think there's maybe four, three or four. It's very rare and very significant each time it's used. And I'm not going to go into that. And I'm not a Bible scholar, but I do remember that is the command is to come to believe that God is all there is. And whether you call God life or whatever word you use for the infinite presence, that doesn't matter. What really matters is, you know, do you have a relationship? It could be your higher power. It could be my son's, you know, growing up, his relationship was the river, water, nature. Um, you know, he didn't really much care to listen to me talk about anything spiritual, although he's a spiritual person, because he connected with nature. And nature is the natural cycle that we are here also to replicate. So this time of Easter is a time of a new awareness, a time of stepping into a new sense of ourselves. And there's so many metaphors, but so as I was saying, whether you know it as God or spirit or consciousness, or you're like my son and you know it as nature, the thing itself exists. Whether we talk about it, think about it, are actively embracing it or not, it is still there. And nothing changes that. And it is that pre-existing reality, which is so much grander than our brains can really wrap our head around. But we can feel it. We can feel its workings. We can feel when it's when it's present in the space, whether that's the little what do they call them, the little titmouse birds that have chosen to make a nest in the birdhouse, a little wooden box that I just haphazardly placed on the corner of the railings of my porch while I was looking for a place to put it. They came and nested very close, 3 feet from my door. My dog could have knocked that birdhouse off at any moment, but she didn't. So life will come along and remind us of how magnificent it is and how trusting we can be and how connected we are. I had a relationship, and I do. It's the third year. They're back again. Now I've got the birdhouse screwed down, but in their spot, you know. So I think Easter is a time for being renewed, for choosing to be renewed, to taking whatever part of the Christian story is meaningful to you, or interpreting it as metaphysics and New Thought will do, so that it becomes a metaphor of what the change and transformation process is really about. And how do we support that? Now, I do a lot of work in Ukraine, and we're working in the public schools there, and which in itself is just a miracle. And we've created a program called the Understanding Peace Project. And so in that program, we're always talking about renewal. We're always talking about the key elements of what the Easter message is. And the Easter message is really that we need to be ourselves fully and realize when change needs to happen and give ourselves fully to that transformation, trusting that there is always a greater good seeking expression and expansion through us, even though it may be painful, even though we don't understand it, even though we really wish it didn't have to happen, even though sometimes it's very, very tragic. There is, on the unseen side of life, there is something moving, something evolving, that we need to learn something about, and we have these experiences to learn from. We can resist. Jesus said, take this cup. I don't want this cup. I don't want this experience. Take it. But ultimately, Jesus, as the story goes, accepted the cup, took responsibility, was who he was, and surrendered to the transformation process. Now, most of our transformations are not so dramatic or so painful, but the process is really still the same. What are some of the terms that we hear at Easter? What are some of the elements of Easter? There's Lent, where we give up something. Now, in the old days, the purpose of Lent really had as much to do with health and well-being as it did with discipline. But let's just say that during this period of Lent, one of those great 40-day examples that history has throughout many cultures, 40 days for a change process, we give something up. It feels like a sacrifice sometimes. A few years ago, one of the communities that I work with in the States, we decided to give up negative thinking for 40 days. Well, it takes a lot of discipline to give up a pattern. It's hard to change our ways. We have these props, and they're anchored into the ground that we hold on to, and that's kind of how we live. And when we decide to give something up, it's not easy, and so often we don't decide until we need to, until we are forced, until it's so important that we cannot ignore it or resist it. That's sometimes how change is. Most often, most people don't choose to make dramatic changes because it's easier to not. But most people, in most circumstances, have found that when change besets us and we can, however long it takes, surrender to it, on the other side of it, there is something so profound that we never would have experienced in our life had it not been for that change, that push that the universe gives us to say, come on, you're more than this. Let's take it up a notch. Let's really do it at the level of your passion, or at the level of your capacity, or your dream, or your possibility. So in Ukraine, when I'm working with these wonderful young people, and some here in this country too, it's the same process. It's like, is there something going on in your life that you just really want to experience. Maybe you want to be on a sports team, or maybe you want to take cartooning to the next level, or maybe you want to, prepare for college, or whatever it is. We have to change something to get into that new track. So giving up some things are oftentimes we have to unlearn, or we have to let go of the comforts or the ease, the taking the shortcuts. And we have to make ourselves willing to stretch and grow. Now, so Lent is a precursor to Easter. Of course, Good Friday, the day of the real choice to surrender, the willingness to take what has been given and find your way to hold it. That's for all of us, whether you're 10 years old or 90. It's the same process. It takes a lot of courage to see what life has given us. And if it's hard, how do we hold it? How do we bear up under that experience? It could be bullying, like one of my granddaughters had a real challenge with some people bullying her. Another granddaughter had an experience of finding herself, not the way she wanted to be when she was with her friends, and wanting to change. But it could be at any level at all. But we have to see that we're not happy being the way we are or with the thing that we have. And we can make a choice at that time. So the crucifixion in the story of Easter is the letting die what is no longer needed, so that what can be revealed, what is needed, can rise up. And so we have to consciously let the part of us that doesn't work or that works against us, we have to let it go. And that takes a lot of discipline. It takes a purpose. If you have a purpose, like when I'm working with the kids, that the purpose is to have a better future. The purpose is to, have the family happy, to be a better son or daughter, or to get better grades, or to have more friends, or to get into college. And when we have a purpose, then we can do anything, because the purpose lifts us out of our attachments to the little ways that we indulge ourselves to not grow, to not let the Easter of our life emerge. Easter comes at springtime, but actually in the process of change, that springtime can come whenever you're ready. But it comes at springtime, and we can use that metaphor, because out of the trees that look, leafless and like nothing's happening there, they look, halfway dead. I have this gorgeous big tree that surrounds my office window here. Out of that, we don't see that in the winter it's really deeply working, bringing its energy up to the roots and putting them out to the leaf areas, so that when it warms up, the crepe myrtle went from no buds to leaves in 2 days this weekend. That's the way life can be. And then sometimes it just seems to take forever. But our job is to be willing to let the new be reborn. And support is really important at that time, because when we're in that time, symbolically of the crucifixion, where we know something new is happening, but something not so nice is happening, or we're in the gap between those two things, that's a time to learn how to let people in. That's an opportunity to trust. Now, we don't grow our trust muscle when we're just sitting having everything come to us easily. We grow it when we need it. It's the same with faith. It's the same with love. We do it when we're ready, when it's time. And so this symbolically is a time for us to look at what is it that wants to be resurrected? What wants to emerge through you? And it's never too early or too late. When I was probably 10 years old, I had my first mystic experience. And it was a phenomenal thing. I didn't know how to even understand it, but I felt it. I felt the mystery of life. It just like opened my eyes to something I never knew was there before. And I lived on a farm, and a big apple farm, and at the bottom and there's a north road, and all the English farmers lived on big farms on the north road. And all the French farmers, this is in Quebec, Canada, all the French farmers lived on smaller farms with lots of children. And the children all had to drop out of school by the time they got to high school so that their parents could come and work for us on our big farms, and the children would work on the smaller farms. It's like the old serf model, an ancient model of domination, really. And unknown to me, it was informing me on what mattered in my life and what matters today in my life. And that is peace, equality, liberty, justice for all. So I was a kid, I was 10 years old. I was going down to the village to visit my French friends. And I trotted down, and there was one road. There was a sidewalk on either side for about a mile and a half. And my friend lived up about a mile and a half at the end of the road, the one I was going to go visit. So it was a nice day. It wasn't too hot, so I decided to run. And I was, I was on the track team at school, and I loved running. So I decided to run. And all of a sudden, I realized that I was flying. I wasn't just running. There was actually nothing happening in my legs and arms. I was just moving down the sidewalk. And then pretty soon, there was no sense of sidewalk or no sense of village. I was just moving forward. I was moving forward. And then I kind of found myself at the end of the sidewalk at my friend's house. And I was just aghast at what had just happened. I didn't know how to hold it. But it was a marker for me. It set something going in me. Because there is so much going on that we don't see. And the change process brings us these gifts all the time if we're awake enough to use them. And so this process of transformation, the Easter experience of resistance, readiness, death, rebirth, renewal, resurrection. That's the spiritual growth. We do not get to transform unless we let go. We had a snake when my son was about 8 or 9. He loves snakes. His daughter loves snakes too. I know, runs in the family. But I learned a lot from that snake. That snake would have to shed its skin in order to grow. And, symbolically, that's what we have to do. And that's what happens. So spiritual growth is Lent. We train for our readiness to change. We develop a discipline by giving up meat or chocolate or negative thinking. And that's a practice to release what doesn't work for us. It could be a bad habit or an attitude or, anything. Michelangelo, I was reading something recently, and there was this great quote, and Michelangelo said, I see the block of stone, and what I really see is not the block. I see the angel inside the stone, and my job is to chip away all of the rock that isn't the angel. And I went, wow, what a perfect metaphor for how we need to let go of the things that are not the perfect expression of God, except, of course, they are in that they challenge us to consciously let go of them. But the beauty that is in that rock, we have to choose that beauty. The beauty that is in us, we have to choose that. We have to accept that. So this process of transformation is always happening. The caterpillar to the butterfly, the waking and the sleeping state of our bodies. We're always in change. So proving that God is all there is the purpose of all spirituality, really, is coming to have a relationship. Not that, God does it for me. Life takes care of it. If I just say, okay, well, life is the king, life rules, and I'll just wait here and it'll take care of me just because I say so. That's not how it works. What happens is I choose to change, and then I've got to let go of everything that doesn't work. I have to let go of my resentments. I have to unlearn. I have to be willing, like children, to trust, like little children, to trust. And I need to unlearn the things that kept me from trusting. A few years ago, I realized that I wanted to be a more kind and more loving person. Because shocking as it may have been, it wasn't actually shocking to me. I had become somebody that I wasn't. I had let creep into me something that wasn't my best self. And I remember reading a book to my kids when they were young. It was called The Big Me and the Little Me. And it was this little character. And the lesson was, when you notice that you're doing something that's your little me, you take a deep breath. When you blow it away. And that lets you back to being your big me. Well, there's lots of tools to do that. When I was working with the 7th grade class in Santa Rosa about 30 years ago, I created a program called I'm a Learner. And we worked with kids who were gang members, kids who were really marginalized, kids that were not supported very well in their life, didn't have so much good family or so much whatever was needed. And I came across this formula called E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And I thought, this is simple. They can understand that. I could understand that. What I've realized is that simple thing that I found to help them understand it works so well for me because it's easy to remember. Event plus response equals outcome. So I started studying that so I could teach the 7th graders. And we come to realize that there's a lot of events that happen in the world, and we did not create them. They are not our individual choices. Sometimes we take it upon ourselves to believe that it's our fault. Mostly it's not. But if we've contributed to it, then that's another matter. You take responsibility for that, and we learn how. And when we don't, life shows us. So, but in this example, most events that happen in our life, we're not in control of, especially when we're kids. And, right now is a hard time. I'm doing a lot of work with children in schools, and I have 4 grandkids. And life, what's normal is gone. And there's so much unknown and uncertainty that I think the best thing we can do for ourselves in this pandemic and hopefully soon post-pandemic world is to really get the lessons from this pandemic. 1, we're all connected. 2, our attitude matters because we can't change the fact that the pandemic's happening, but we can change our relationship to it. What are we thinking about? What are we creating our life with? The event is the pandemic. Our response is ours. Are we reacting? In other words, is our emotion out of control? Are we scared? Are we blaming? Are we hiding? Are we mad? Are we burning the masks? Are we wearing 3? Where are we? That's our response. And the outcome that we get will be totally different depending on what our response is. So, 2 people can wake up in the morning and one can say, oh, darn it, it's Monday. I got to go to work. I'm so tired of this job. And it's just, and trudging off they go and bringing that attitude everywhere they go. and their coworkers feel it. It goes before them. And they come home and they say, well, that was not a really happy day. What's the matter? Life is not nice. And then they get stuck in this kind of pattern of, being unhappy. Another person, same job, wakes up in the morning, says, wow, it's Monday. I am so grateful I had a good night's sleep. I am happy that my body still works. I'm glad my brain still works. I'm really grateful for the job I have. You know, I don't know exactly how to do everything I'm supposed to do today, but I'll figure it out, or I'll ask somebody, let's go. My mother had that kind of quality all the time about herself. So those two people have very different experiences. The outcomes are very different. The thing that matters is, are we reacting emotionally, or are we responding consciously? Really, the Easter story is, how do we hold what life gives us? What do we do with it? Do we use it to grow ourselves, our consciousness, our loving, our kindness? When I made that intention to grow and become a kinder, more loving person, it wasn't easy, because I saw all the places that I wasn't so loving and so kind. I had to work at it. So there's a little, not a trick, a system that we can use when we want to change something, and it combines science and imagination. And so I want to just share that with you. But before I do, I want to remind you that in the bulletin, there was a really great quote by Eric Butterworth in a fantastic book called Discover the Power Within You. But he's written a lot of great books, spiritual economics. He was a unity minister. And he says, Easter is a time to take a new look at ourselves and contemplate the divinity in us, the depths of our own innate God potential. It is a time to reappraise the principle that makes all overcoming possible. And I read that. It is a time to reappraise the principle that makes all overcoming possible. What is that? Out of that quote came the title for this talk. Because when we know that there is a principle that makes anything possible, if you believe it and if you lean into it with the right attitude, the guy that wakes up in the morning angry is not going to be the one that comes home totally satisfied from the job. And the person who's satisfied and challenged and excited tends to attract more things that support them to be more satisfied and excited and successful. And this principle that God is all there is, that it is the ultimate power, is not that it comes down and does something for us that we can't do. It's only because it can do for us only what it can do through us. We have to be the ones to change. We have to be the ones to be able to perceive it. This is the good news, is that it's in our hands. We command, we create the form, we determine based on how much of that principle do we believe. Do we believe that prayer works all the time, once in a while? Do we believe that everything is possible on Sundays or when things are going easy? Or do we believe it's easier for them, but not for us? Because after all, I didn't, whatever. We have to see ourselves. We are that middle number in the equation. And we are who flavors and colors everything. There's another wonderful quote about Easter from Edward Viljoen, the minister at Santa Rosa Church. And I read this morning, and he's quite a Bible scholar, and he was talking about finding the compass of love and letting love. And that's what Jesus talked about. He talked about love. He couldn't have lived his life and ended his life if he didn't love his relationship with the infinite, loved that more than anything. Now, most of us are not asked to sacrifice so much, but we have been asked to sacrifice a great deal. Some of us, maybe even now, are being asked to sacrifice a great deal. And if we can hold it in that same way that says, even in this, the infinite is there. Even in this, my higher power is guiding me. Even in this, there is a presence in me that knows and it knows the right thing to do, and I'm going to be open to that. When my son was 13, 14, 15, and starting to make some choices that I didn't approve of, and there was nothing I could do except trust that inside him was the wisdom of the ages, because it's inside all of us. And I told him I trusted that. I said, I trust that when you really need to, you will make the right choice. And he did. And it took him a while. And it wasn't easy. But we got there because we practiced something at some level. And even though he didn't look like he was listening, he was. Because what I was talking about was what is native to him. So Edward says, when Jesus says to his students, by this shall all people know you are my disciples, that ye love one another, he announced a standard for all and any faith tradition, and for you and for me. It's this: how we show up in the world is our message. It's our testament, it's our demonstration, it's our legacy. Not just in the good times, but in the rough times. How we love one another. And so I want to just close it there and know that none of us have to do great things. We can't change the world. It will change as we do. Our job is to give it our very best, whatever that is. So I wish there were more time. I had a song I wanted you to hear called Raising a Kind Child. And there's a story that I wrote that is really about those experiences of being tall or being small and how to deal with all of that. But maybe that'll come another day. I think the point is clear. Easter is here. And it's our choice what we resurrect from the truth of who we are to carry us on the next new cycle that this spring is pushing us up into, or guiding us, or inspiring us up into. It's an amazing time, and we can use this energy no matter what's going on in our life for the better, for ourselves and for those that we love, for the children around us who need all the support, and for us who need to change to let those children be the people that we need to guide us to create a different kind of humanity that works better. So it might look messy, it might be painful, it might seem like the end, but it isn't. It's a new beginning. It's a new possible humanity. And whether it happens or not depends on the R in the formula of your life. So I thank you. Happy Easter. All is well. All is well in my soul. All is well in my life. All is well is my choice. And knowing that God is all there is, there can be nothing else. Then all is well here and here and here and here. And so irregardless of what the conditions are, I choose to remember today that all is well. That there is one power and one presence, and it is in us and we are in it. It is one infinite thing expressed in a few billion ways. And so I know that we leave today aware that this is a new beginning. I know that something in this community today, and seeing old friends and feeling the newness of spring outside and remembering the joy that as we sing the songs with Guy today, and something in the message today about the possibilities and the responsibility and the opportunities of change. I know that something has touched us today that changes our lives. And we lean into that and we say, thank you. Thank you for that. And I let that carry me and anyone else who joins me in recognizing that there's only one thing happening. There's only one thing present, and that is the infinite presence, God, and that's all there is. And that's all that we are. And all is well.